I'm Paul.
I'm Todd. Game on.
Well, that was kind of spiffy.
I think we nailed it. I think we got this down, Paul.
Finally, got the rhythm.
Got the rhythm.
Got the rhythm. Got the beat.
Exactly. The pre-Thanksgiving game on celebration, right?
Amen, brother. So, how you be first?
I'm good. I'm prepping the house for a little bit of Thanksgiving family coming in. Did a couple.
How many family?
Small. Was it going to be 9? Unfortunately, mother-in-law got sick, so she's not going to be coming. So, but my parents, my sister, our kids, my wife. So a tight 7. How about you?
Well, we're kind of not doing anything really this year. Normally, what we do is we go to our nephew's house, who lives about a mile from here. But I know his daughter, who I was so. She's our great niece, but she treats us like we're her grandparents. Got married like 2-3 weeks ago, so they're doing a thing over at his parents' house this year. So we're kind of having Thanksgiving on Saturday, probably, and then me and Yvonne and I are probably just gonna go somewhere for dinner and hang out, play it loose, and I'm gonna watch a lot of football.
Nice. We are going to maybe some of the folks in chat are familiar with this game. You Don't Know Jack. I don't know if you've played it, Paul. It's kind of like a game show, style video game, trivia and Pictionary, and there's a more slightly naughty adult version, and then there's a family-friendly version. So anyway, we picked that up. So that's going to be our Thanksgiving gaming activity this year. So yes, anyone out there in chat, have you played this? You Don't Know Jack? I recommend it. Family-friendly content will be gathered around the console after we gather around the turkey and football.
So do you know Lori and Miles?
I do. Yeah, they're clearly here for Claire. They're definitely clear. They're within the Scholastic Esports family, doing great work using games for education. Hopefully, they have a lot of questions queued up for our special guest coming in the back half of the show. So yeah, great to see you, Miles and Laurie.
This one is Brent.
And Brent and Sylvester, another passionate educator closer to my neck of the woods in Atlanta. Hey, Sylvester.
And here's the YouTube version of Brent. I'm assuming it's the same.
I need at least 2 Brents in my life.
Yeah, I have dozens of them.
Yeah, well, that might be a few too many, but.
And then finally, Sylvester, Sylvester?
I do. I just saw Sylvester at our esports summit event. He's got a great esports program of kids that are playing games and learning how to broadcast and doing amazing things.
Okay. Well, you're very diplomatic, Miles. It's nice to meet you.
Awesome.
So let's I gotta tell you, I was a couple of weeks ago, I was kind of doing my gaming thing, so to speak, and oh wow, that's not Brent. I wonder who it is then. Okay, Players Production Network, whichever person you are, let me know. Okay, so I was sort of scrolling around and looking for what's new and so on, and I saw this kind of what's really a bigger announcement than even the gaming, like the people gaming knew, which was that Valve announced hardware that was going to be Steam operating system based, and at the same time were designed to hit areas that are of real importance now. So, for example, they have a new Steam controller, which of course, because a lot of what's happening now is, I think, a number of the controllers like Lenovo's Lenovo Pro has Steam operating system on it, and other controllers are starting to adopt it. But this is a Steam controller. They had another one which is kind of, bleh, but this was a Steam controller that's really like keyed in and heavy duty. Then they have AR VR headset, which apparently is wireless, light. Like, it actually, from the initial reviews I saw on, I think, Marcus Brownlee and people like that, it's probably, for the price, the best one on the market, at least the preliminary look at it. And then the one that intrigued me the most was they have their own Steam gaming PC that is absolutely built for just that.
And the new version of the Steam Deck, not quite out, but hinted and talked about, coming soon. So
think about that. That's 4 pieces of significant hardware, all aligned to markets that extend beyond than just pure gaming, PC gaming. And at the same time, though, I think, and the gamers are excited about it because it's an additional way to game, right? And an additional approach to it all. But the thing that got me about it was one of the bigger missing pieces of Steam's drive to be a complete engagement ecosystem for gamers, really, but meaning for young people and older people, to all the data that you've been providing over the last few episodes, who game. And it says, look, you can come to us and we will have everything end to end you need as a creator, as a gamer, as an intermediary between that, and if you need the software, we have it. If you need the hardware, we have it. If you need the platform, we have it. If you need to have the marketplace, we have it. If you need the communities, we have them. And they're all within this singular ecosystem, which to me is actually arguably the tightest, most advanced customer engagement ecosystem on the planet.
It's a fascinating. Yeah. I think a few things are going on, Paul. So, number one, the same week that all that Valve Steam hardware was announced, I don't know if you saw, there was a third-party analyst that also was talking about Valve and Steam's current business, software-based business through the store and their own properties. So it was a big week of news and spotlight on Steam and Valve's ecosystem. Those figures, again, from a third party, but they got a lot of pickup on external sites because they were based on some other public documents. They basically highlighted Valve as by far the most profitable company per employee on planet Earth, and it's not even close. If their numbers are right, currently they make about $50 million per employee.
I want to be an employee there.
Much of that goes to reinvestment, and Gabe just bought a massive yacht, but because they are privately held and not private equity funded, it really is tightly held, which is probably part of why they keep winning. But as Miles said, Steam is on another level, just in terms of how they run the company, because it's very few employees. The average employee compensation is over $1 million per employee, just if you just run the math on the number of employees they have and their salary cumulatively. But what's interesting is my experience working with them in the past, and I think many others would back this up, is they're very deliberate in what they do. This is a lesson for any business. There's a lot of functions that other publishers do, and they just don't do it. You know, customer support. They really don't do it. They rely on automation and the community and really good tools and tech, but they really don't have customer support. They have very little traditional business development. If you wanted to pick up the phone and talk with someone there to make a deal, it would be very challenging for you to get a human to answer it. They pick and choose what they do, and they don't do a lot of things. So the fact that they're going so hard into the hardware world and really building this ecosystem around PC gaming, redefining PC gaming, because as you said, it's not even Windows based, it's Steam OS based, and they're at least their last generation. You can run Windows if you want, but they have a whole layer of software that allow Windows games to play on top of their Linux based OS. So, you know, when I think ecosystem, probably at least up until now, the number one company that comes to my mind is Apple. You know, hardware, software, tightly controlled consumer experience, maybe a reputation of being a walled garden, you know, not so open to partners. So they kind of have to deal with that, but they certainly work backwards from customer experience and try to own the whole thing. And so anyway, yeah, clearly with this move, Valve is doing all their great work of building a software ecosystem and now moving into the living room and hardware and headset and on the go. I'm not actually sure. I don't know. It'd be interesting for us to put a wager down. Like I'm not sure how many units of the Steam box are gonna sell. I don't know. Are you optimistic? You think they're gonna move a lot of them?
No, I'm actually not. Honestly, look, so let me sort of do an equivalent. So Microsoft Dynamics is their productivity, their CRM and ERP applications. And for them, it's a tiny part of their business. It's $5 billion. That's it, which is not a tiny part of anyone else's business. But for them, that is like, you know, we could take it or leave it. But but what Microsoft's always understood, no matter how little they made with that business, was in order for them to be an end-to-end ecosystem, and they are conscious of this, they had to have that piece there. It didn't have to sell the best ever. It had to complete a part of the ecosystem. And that's exactly what the Steam box does. It's not gonna sell great. Why would you bother? It's still a PC one way or the other, right? You don't need it. But it exists. And it's kind of like, it's important for it to exist and to be effectively become a loss leader. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. If Steam really wanted that box to sell, they would pull in all their APIs and restrict everything, right? But they don't. Look, I use the Lenovo Go S. I have a Steam Deck, and I have the OLED version. That's built into my basement now, so if I want to game on my TV, I can, because there's a dock that goes with that for that purpose. You know, the lag time on that thing is pretty hefty, so I'm not entranced with it particularly. But I much prefer on the hardware side the Lenovo Go S. Right, and it's a more powerful processor, bigger screen, but it's Steam OS. And why would Steam give a crap? That, you know, they're making their money because people are buying Steam games. They may be playing on the hardware. On the other hand, Steam wants to have the hardware, and I think the big seller, honestly, is going to be the AR/VR headset because of the reviews and also the quality apparently of what you can do. And I actually think they're very conscious of that. To the other side of the point. You mentioned partners. The other thing I did notice with Steam is they're careful, but they do integrate. Mm-hmm. Not that they don't partner with exactly. They integrate with, like with Battle.net, right? With Battle.net, things like that. You know, in fact, it's a requirement of, say, I don't know, what you call it, Destiny 2 or something, that you actually have a Battle.net account. I think it's Battle.net that you integrate with, whatever. Is it Battle.net? It's whatever.
Activision Blizzard's is Battle.net. Yep.
Yeah. Well, so that you actually integrate with the Battle.net platform, so that, and still you can run it with Steam anyway, and the revenue is Steam's, and the updating process is Steam. But you still have to do that integration. And that's
Yep.
obviously, and they don't mind that. They don't mind letting the APIs float in a manner of speaking. So, because they,
Well, it's
like,
going to be fascinating to watch. I think you're right because there was a lot of I think there was a lot of excitement around the announcement. Any maybe negativity or concern, from gamers was around the price point because, like you said, what typically happens with the console that you plug into your TV, from years of Xbox and Sony is it was a loss leader. It's like the razor and the blades model. You sell the
yeah,
razor at a loss, and then now you're in the ecosystem and you have to buy the blades. And so
exactly.
people were kind of expecting that with Steam, which would have meant around maybe a $500 price point. But it seems like while nothing official has happened, a lot of the predictions are it's more going to be like 750 or a little bit north. Like a good PC that you would build yourself, but you don't have to build yourself, and it's a smaller form footprint. So we'll see. But this world of ecosystems is definitely where we're living in terms of gaming
We're
right
living that
now.
in the B2B world too. Exactly. It's platforms and ecosystems. If you don't get that, you're a fool as a company. You really
Yeah,
are.
I like it. Well, there's a guy that I've called him out before, but Joost van Drunen, who is a professor who does a lot of gaming analysis, and he says gaming goes between content innovation, new types of games and gameplay and graphics, and distribution innovation. And right now, we're in a time of distribution innovation. So Steam ecosystem. Roblox is a whole other distribution ecosystem, Fortnite. So, a lot of the innovation in our industry is just how you get the content and what that
Exactly.
form factor is. And that will enable other types of content, just like when we went through the
Yep.
revolution of this distribution innovation, suddenly there were new types of games that came that weren't around before you had a touchscreen and shorter session length. So, yeah, I like your analysis on Steam, just
And
gobbling everything in the vertical
it's
stack of PC
genius.
gaming.
But the other side, I think, and you make this is a major point, which is the issue of distribution. Look, to be honest, and I'm going to slightly toot PPN's horn here. The reason we created PPN was based on distribution models,
Hmm.
right? The problem was never creation. Look, the world's being the business world in particular, and B2B world is now becoming owned by millennials, and more Gen Zers are moving into management roles and so on, right? And Gen X is kind of still around and moving out, and my generation should have retired a long time ago, right? Sometimes it's retirement because they don't live anymore, and other times it's retirement because they quit, finally realizing, okay, get out, right? So, but the weakness and consumption's consumption. I mean, the way that Gen Z and millennials consumed was just different than Gen X and boomers, but also impacted how Gen X and boomers consume. It changed in part how they consume. The net problem was never the creation or the consumption. It was what happened in between, which is distribution. The entire premise for the existence of PPM is different forms of content distribution. We're testing out a lot of things in the B2B world in particular. To your point, that's why I think the B2B world actually needs to understand gaming better. And again, as we've said in every show, so I'll continue the tradition, it's not the same as gamification.
Yep.
Gamification is a failure, right? But gaming is not, right? And so on the B2B world, for example, your equivalent to Steam is actually Oracle, right? Oracle has the hardware, Sun Systems, of course, the software. They have the the web. They even go further, and they have the web services framework, and infrastructure, and they actually are end to end in the business world, hardware to software. But where gaming actually does a better job than Oracle, and where Oracle can step their game up, is around the engagement side, right? They don't engage. Theirs is a business ecosystem. Okay, meaning we'll provide you with all the things you need to run your businesses, regardless of size, end to end, and we'll make it as easy on you as possible. But we're not focused around the engagement of the customers per se. We're focused on the let's call it we're customer centric, meaning we will provide for them and we'll make sure you can do the jobs you need to do, but we're not focused on you engaging with us and staying fully engaged, except in a more programmatic, strategic way, but not technically or technologically, or even from the standpoint of how we build our ecosystem. So that's their weakness. On the other hand, they have a huge strength in their ability to service any business on the planet with the infrastructure they do have and the ecosystem they built and the platform they have. And we can't forget that part of Steam either. The platform itself is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, for sure. Well, glad you stayed in the game, Paul. I think you were right with PPN to identify, every company eventually will be a media company. Like you need to put out content. You need to talk directly to your audience. We have the technology that allows us to do this today and allows companies to do it, allows educators to do it. So yeah, ecosystem building, community building, how you harness technology to do that and create more impact. I think that's what it's all about.
Well, again, right to the point, it's like the two companies that's kind of on the B2B side that are significant names. When I talk, these are technology companies. That is, were Salesforce, which created Salesforce One, and HubSpot, which created the HubSpot Creators Network. And Salesforce kind of veered from the original model, which was Salesforce Plus was actually a media company really built within Salesforce's things. It's become more of an event producer, meaning it handles Dreamforce and things like that, which it did anyway, but it used to have shows. It was nominated for Emmys, in fact, for the shows. But Colin Ferguson, who was their CMO, well, the head of it, went and is now the CMO over at ServiceNow, and they it didn't destroy, but it kind of diminished as a result. HubSpot, what they did was kind of a combination of actual audio podcasts and Y Combinator, right? So essentially what they said was, look, you've got a podcast of interest to us. We will fund it. We will support it. We'll go to market with you, but you have to be part of our network. That was the way it worked. And that one has been very successful and was also unique in the form of distribution, because these are business podcasts, being funded by a Y Combinator, which has then been distributed by HubSpot itself. But HubSpot always had kind of a B2C strong marketing side too, which is one of the reasons that they operate the way they do. The problem in my universe is there aren't a ton of, there are not a ton of, let's call it, media companies out there. There is an increasing interest in having media property within the company, but not a presence in the way that we're talking about with what you've been talking about and what I just mentioned with Salesforce One was. It's more like, okay, we know we need to look at distribution more from the standpoint of, and engagement from the standpoint of like video and things like that. They understand that, and they're kind of moving more in the conversational direction, things like that, but they don't really have the organized institutional presence. Again, one of the reasons Brent and I created PPN was to fill the gap. And it's not that we're not going to, fill the gap in some massive way. It's to set the examples that they can use.
Yeah,
that's why we
love that.
Experiment. Well, one of the reasons we got you and me doing this, man. I mean, we're trying to set an example.
B2B,
right? So,
learning from B2C, and now we're going to learn from education here. I'm going to use this to transition to our guest, Paul. Should I do a short intro before?
No, we got to get to the other studio so we can
bring her in. All right. Well,
so what do you say we head on over?
I think we should level up our knowledge, Paul.
God, did you ever notice the resemblance of the second studio to our first one? It's like
Well, we're a
identical.
little budget constrained right now.
Yeah, you know what I did? I basically just shifted my butt right.
You and me both.
So you would, yeah, please.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this one. So why don't you introduce our guest?
All right. I have known Claire LeBeaux for many years, had the pleasure to know her. She's the Chief Advancement Officer for NASIF. NASIF is the Network of Academic and Scholastic Esports Federations. And I'll let Claire share the origin story, but we were just talking about platforms, that like in your HubSpot example, they're reaching out to creators in the B2B world and supporting them and growing a community around them. And NASIF is doing the same thing with educators, specifically educators in K through 12 who are passionate about the power of video games and esports for positive student outcomes. And Claire has been a part of the organization from the very early on and is a key player. So let's bring her into the studio, Paul. I'm pleased to welcome Claire.
I feel like I should do the little Scooby-Doo thing or something. Exactly. You have the sound effects.
Great to see you.
Next time.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. And interesting conversation. So I was thinking B2B to B2C, and then is it B to E for
let's go
to
B
education,
to E.
or I don't know. Let's just invent our own acronym.
I love it.
But it's really B to P because it's to the people, right? Education means you're reaching out into the people and into the younger generation. Which is
so how's this all work? The most basic possible question.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of the origin story, Claire, and then
Sure.
What NASIF is. I mean, I said it, but you'll say it better.
Yes. Yeah. No, I do the same thing every time I say NASIF. You have to at least once explain the acronym: Network of Academic and Scholastic Esports Federation. So there, we've said it twice. NASIF started, we are coming up on 8 years ago now, and it was a pilot program in Southern California, trying to see if we could somehow leverage kids' interest in video games and esports and help them develop career pathways, career understanding, career exploration. I always say it's just as good to try something and discover you hate it as it is to try something and discover that you love it. So, that career exploration is super important in the K-12 space. So we're really leveraging youth interest in esports to help them see, where can I go with my future? What are some business applications of esports? The interesting thing is it could apply in esports. It could apply in a different aspect of the business community, because if you learn how to be a shoutcaster or a streamer, now you have skills that you could use in any broadcast journalism venue. You've developed public speaking skills, which will help you if you're on a podcast like this one, or if you're presenting at a conference, or you're lobbying for a raise from your boss. All of those skills that we can help kids develop at a younger age are really valuable.
I'm actually really curious about kind of the difference in how you approach kindergarten and 12th grade, right? Meaning, high school. And because I remember when I was in kindergarten, the only thing I remember is milk and nap time, right? So, that was it.
Well, the way that we approach it with the younger kids is through some of our Minecraft programming, which is less about outright business skills and more about, let's take the game of Minecraft and have you build something fun. So I'll use an example. We're going to play Minecraft and we're going to learn how to build a Rube Goldberg machine. You know what a Rube Goldberg machine is, Paul? Have you heard of those?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm old enough to know.
Oh yeah. Crazy contraption to accomplish a simple task, right? So we partner with several different organizations and we put on a Minecraft competition where kids learn how to build a Rube Goldberg machine. This season, we're going to be talking about opening a box. So how do you string together 6 simple machines to open a box? Well, the kids are playing Minecraft, so they love it. So they're engaged. At the same time, they're learning physics and engineering and design and working as a team and all of these things. And it's just easier to facilitate because it's this natural game environment they love. Now take that same competition up to 12th grade. Now they can still do it in Minecraft, but we also partner with Epic Games to offer it in Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine, as you know, is a very widely used development platform, not just for games, but also for movies and for, the fashion industry, automotive design, all kinds of things. So we take the same competition and then you just apply it differently. If you're in the, the milk and nap stage, or if you're in the, I'm almost headed off to college, I better have a portfolio that can show some of these skills that I have.
See, that's fascinating to me. Because it's conscious. That's the other reason it's fascinating. Because honestly, my gaming obsession's Diablo 4, and I'm 75, right? So it's like I'm an old guy, right? But that's basically how do you kill millions of people with no blood, or millions of monsters with no blood? That's about all it does. I can't see a single useful lesson in that game, which actually brings up another point, right? Which is, given there are a lot of games that are, let's say, less than valuable for teaching. How do you pick and choose the actual games that you use? I mean, what kind of process is there to just say, okay, this is appropriate for this and this is appropriate for this? We'll use them. How's that work?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, on the video game side itself, where we're talking about pure gameplay for tournaments, we can rely on the game ratings. That helps a lot.
Right.
But even with that, there are some schools that say, okay, we're going to be okay with Fortnite, and some that say we're not, and that's fine. If you have, we look at it as a kind of a buffet. We have all these different options, and whatever works within your community, you can implement. But I'm going to see if I can share my screen here.
Well,
and
you should be able to, if you know StreamYard at all, but you'll see a button down below underneath. Present there, you got it. I'll add you to the stage now. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
Paul, I gotta for the record, while Claire brings this up, I gotta defend your favorite game, Diablo. So while Claire is right, there's different content and ratings and different age groups and communities. And as Miles is saying in the chat, it's just like books. There are books that are age appropriate for middle school compared to high school, compared to college, compared to adults. But all that said, I mean, Paul, you could do a math lesson in Diablo with the stacking of all the abilities and the order of operation and coming up with theory crafting around a build. And if you were doing it for an audience where the gore level was appropriate, there's a lot of math behind that in most role-playing games.
It's all math.
Stick up. It's your favorite game.
No,
and as you know, it's all math.
And
underneath.
you're right. You are right. I mean, there's a guy named Rob 2628 who's a German kid. He's not that, he's like probably 29 or 30. I'm guessing this is how he makes his living. That guy literally has the spreadsheets and the math, and he's every new season he's working the details of the math and whether it's addition, multiplicative, et cetera, but it's basically hit points. So
he's a theory crafter. All right, throw it back to Claire.
That was a perfect segue, and I was going to say you got theory crafters and analysts, and that's, really what we try to do with NASEF is we look at the games as a magnet that draws kids in. Kids love video. We as adults love video games, right? So of course the kids do too. So if you can use a game to draw in the students and have them be more excited about what they're learning, or show up to participate in a club after school when they may not have otherwise, now you can teach them about all of these different career aspects. So for example, theory crafting and analytics, and you've got math skills development there. You could look at marketing, you could look at IT support. There's really a wide range of careers. And so when we work with schools to set up an esports program, we're saying not only what games you're going to play, but also what is the environment that you're creating around the games so that there's a place for everyone. Because, it's like any sport, you have a handful who are really good at, some aspect, and then at whatever the title is. And then you have a whole lot of kids who still are interested in esports, but they're not going to be the best, but they still want to be part of the organization, and they still are going to develop. There are two things in an esports environment. One is the career skills, but the other is those personal social skills. And when you take a group of kids who, looking at our statistics, 60% of the kids in esports clubs haven't ever done any other extracurricular ever. So you
Did
take
you hear that, Paul? I mean, they're
60%.
kids that are like on the fringe, right? They may
Yeah.
have no attachment to their school. I mean, they don't, by definition, have a formal
Yeah.
affiliation with an extracurricular, and this is
Yeah.
bringing them in.
Yeah. And it's also their favorite thing, for the most part, has been looked down upon or pushed aside for a long time. And now the school says this is important. We're gonna have a school team that plays in a state championship. We're gonna get, you're gonna get a letter if you're one of the best. We're gonna have team jerseys. We're gonna announce you on the announcements. This develops a pride and a self-confidence. And, for myself, when I think about a kid in middle school or high school, if they can develop that self-confidence and then carry that through the rest of their studies and on into their career path, whatever it is they pursue, that's a win, because we've helped them see that what matters to them matters.
So let me, this is another thing that comes to mind, given apparently we're all moving into a world that's going to be AI driven. Well, not it'll still be human driven, but AI
assisted, maybe.
Yeah, persistent. That's perfect. And what triggered it was actually when I was looking at your careers there, because that is a big career coming up, and software development is not really going to be the same either. How do you adjust for things? How do you utilize it? But how do you even adjust for the fact it is there? And that would, you can make that even a more general question. As new careers show popularity and promise, how do you adjust at the level of providing for these kids?
Yeah. I can give you a couple examples of how we're integrating AI into programs that we're offering. One of the main uses right now for a lot of us for AI is just research, right? You go to ChatGPT, help me find everything I ever wanted to know about X. And then you do some sifting through to figure out, okay, what of this is quality information? What are the sources of this information? This is a skill that kids need to develop also. So in our FarmCraft program, where we're learning about agriculture and the future of, modern technology in agriculture, we're telling the kids, we want you to research an aspect of agriculture. This season, we're talking about land demand and how does a farmer decide if they're going to grow timber or peaches as crops where they are. So the kids are going to do some research around maybe what are the factors that are considered. You can use AI for that. Then they're going to demonstrate their knowledge by building a world in Minecraft that implements the things they learned. So we're saying use the AI for the research. We're all doing that now. So learn how to use the AI for the research, and then we're going to give you a different way to demonstrate what you've learned. And so there's just this level of engagement all around that that's fantastic.
I would also, Claire, to Paul, to your question about even beyond AI, like how do the materials stay fresh and relevant and keep up with different tech trends or demographic trends? Claire, maybe just speak about the Fellows program, because to me, this is something, Paul, that any organization could think about adopting, maybe more B2B oriented companies, just to keep a community of practice going. So Claire, speak about a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. The Fellows program is fantastic. It's a professional learning community. The program runs about 9 months at a time. And it's a very competitive process to be selected. We have fellows from around the world. And then once they're in that community, we provide them with coaching for themselves and then a group call where they connect with other leaders who are using esports for education. And those leaders might be a teacher, it might be the kindergarten teacher we talked about. It might be the high school teacher. It also might be a librarian. It might be somebody who is in industry. It might be someone at a Boys and Girls Club. So esports is implemented in all of these different settings. They can all work together and collectively elevate the level of understanding that they have and the way that they apply different knowledge. So, certainly everyone in education circles right now is trying to figure out, how do we implement AI? How do we use it as a tool? How do we have the kids not cheat with it? All of these things, right? Those are conversations that they can have and work through and then come up with solutions together. And, really that body of Scholastic Fellows is the cream of the crop, I would say, as far as esports education goes. And it continues. It's not just the 9 months. Then the fellows continue on and they continue to collaborate, support each other. They're really leading the way in esports education. I'm really glad you brought them up, Todd. I see a few of our fellows that are commenting in the chat as well. And, that's a testament to the fact that they stay engaged and they continue to learn and to lead.
Well, we've talked on this, Paul and I, about B2B and B2C and just community building and engaging your stakeholders. And we've talked about a lot of different tools like Discord and user groups. And so this Fellows is another kind of tool in the toolbox for any organization that wants to develop expertise internally and more ambassadors and more professional development. So
it's just sort of off the top of my head here, I'm trying to think through how to, because B2B is a kind of a peculiar world in its own right. I mean, I'm right brain, so I tend to be on the C side to begin with. I'm more on the individual human side than the business side per se, but at the same time I lived in B2B until my mostly retirement of last year. And so but I'm trying to think of, how do you take what you're applying, because you're dealing with K through 12 right now, but in this case it would be people in their 20s through 50s probably, for the most part. And I know they get gaming because they grew up with it, right? Most of them. Maybe the latter crew didn't quite grow up that way, but if they're latchkey kids or something. But on the whole, they grew up with it. And the question would be, how do you B2B? Look, here's the thing, and maybe something to put your mind to, and we can explore actually a little bit, possibly, Todd, at IRL. So here's the sort of problem. You have B2B world, which is people who are with sales process is somewhat different. How business gets closed varies from place to place, but it's different than it's not an individual consumer purchase. Let's just say that it's a larger, financial transaction. And there tends to be a disconnect between transaction and interaction, which doesn't exist in B2C, really. I mean, it does, but not to that extent. So, which to me, a transaction is just a subset of interactions, same thing, right? I mean, it's not different. It's an action that a human being takes involving something else, right, or someone else. So, the question is, how would you apply the principles of what you're doing, which obviously very successfully, because I don't think, for example, although it's possible it would work, Minecraft would be particularly the way to go with it, but per se, but it may, because I guarantee that a lot of these people are probably still playing it, right? They just don't want to admit it now. That's the difference, right? So, Todd and I have had that discussion too. people who won't admit that they're gamers. Right. So how would you apply that? Or again, just if you're kind of riffing here, how would you think of applying it to the B2B world to get them to improve, basically, in a way, how each of them both lives their life and performs, but also lives their life, really?
Mm-hmm. I think it's really the interest-driven aspect. We kind of joke with NASAF that we could have been the knitting society if that were the most popular thing with kids, right? But what they love is esports. And so then we've taken that model of what are you most interested in? And we've built an intentional structure around it for the personal development and the career development. And I think that, in the B2B world, corporations could do the same. What is it that is an interest base of a huge portion of our employees or a huge portion of our customers? And then how can we build something that creates a strong network that connects those interests with what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I think that's a good lens. I mean, I could say, Paul, like, for example, it wouldn't have to be the theme of teamwork, but that's one that comes to mind where business teams want to be highly functioning. There's different roles, they're coordinating. And obviously, a lot of these games are multiplayer and there's teamwork. And a lot of the nascent value for a lot of the esports is not just problem solving or mastery, but it is teamwork and communication skills. And so I could see an engagement, around that. There could be other things too. I mean, you could probably build a game around closing skills or anything else, but teamwork's probably the easiest that comes to mind because it's built into so many existing
actually,
multiplayer
to your
games.
point, one thing that comes to mind is one of the things that's characterized B2B conferences in some cases, usually the kind of conferences that are not singular vendor but are more industry wide, is attendees, especially in relatively small ones. They're often the workshops, and the workshops are simulations when it boils down to it, right? Teams get together. Their job is to do X, Y, Z. They have this much available to them to do it. They're given their resources. They're given this, and this, and then they're judged according at the end of that. And one of those teams wins, and they usually win something, right? But it's, if you really look at it from a game standpoint, it's a simulation, right? And so there is something there. I'm positive, and I actually think, honestly, there's, I mean, I hate to put it in these terms, but I don't really. There's revenue for you guys in this one, right? There, it's going to take some work, but there's those kind of things. Look, when it boils down to it, these B2B executives were kids and are adults who still game to a large extent. Many of them do, and they'll get it. They'll get, and they really like the simulations, although some of them get pretty cutthroat. But typically they're actually pretty good-willed. Now, that said, here's the other problem I'll pose to both of you here, which is, and it's one that Todd and I have talked about, and I mentioned earlier, gamification's failed in this industry, and that tended to take the form of, like, for example, SAP had this thing where they had all these, they would get the people who were entering data, and that was their job, basically, data entry clerk almost, were doing a bad job and weren't entering it fast enough, weren't doing it. So they gamified it and they put up leaderboards and, and by department, and it did increase the rate, but ultimately it was a complete failure, right? Because it's basically, you're still entering data and it's still boring, right? No matter how you cut it, even if there's a prize at the end of the day, it's still boring. Oh, I'm number 12. I entered, oh my, no wonder I have carpal tunnel, right? So that's what I mean. It failed. So there's that to overcome. That when you talk, because what you're talking about is 100% different, right? So I honestly think there's a real potential in that way, which would be worth exploring a bit more, really. Now, I have to still talk to Brent about this, of course, but Claire, one of the things that Todd, the way I met Todd last year was that me and Brent Leary, who do CRM Players, run the PPN network. And Anand Thakur was a friend of Todd's. I wanted to do a panel on gaming there, and me and Anand, who's a gamer, and he said, "What about this guy Todd Harris?" And we had a great panel, and it's a community. It's the CRM, customer experience, customer engagement community. That's who is this conference. And we explore, it's 100% right brain conference. That's the purpose of it. There's no, I said my literal public announcement last year, and will be again this year, is anything that involves a number is not going to be talked about here, right? So but see, this is an area where it might be really interesting, is to discuss the difference, because we want to do another gaming panel, and we want to actually do something hopefully at Todd's venue too. But one of the things, maybe discussing the difference between these two in a little more length and a little deeper, and also the people who you'll be visible to are exactly the people in B2B world you want to be visible to. So it might be a worthwhile endeavor, because I honestly think that's an area we really need to crack. Well, I almost knocked a light over. Get rid of gamification and replace it with esports and gaming, and let people understand how to do it. And you guys are leaders in that, so I think it'd be really worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, and I've talked this whole time about how we use esports for education, and that's super important. But also, we can't just forget the value of play. It is good to, it's good to play. And
Sure is.
Whether you're young, whether you're older, and to be together with your teammates or your colleagues or somebody that you're trying to solve a problem with and just have fun. At the end of the day, you all are going to work better together. So, I think there's something about that. We run at a lot of the conferences that we attend, we run a Mario Kart challenge. And actually, I have one of the little, this is from the Q conference. So I'm not very good, as you can tell, because I was ranked number 47 out of 60. But what we do is we just set up Mario Kart, and then we give everybody one of these little challenge coins. And so if Todd's number 2, well, we'll put Todd at 15 and I start out at 50 and I challenge Todd, he's going to win. So he stays 15. But maybe if I challenge you, Paul, I might beat you. And
oh no, you would beat me. I'm horrible.
So then we exchange. So now that's how I move up. You're not managing a bracket. It's super easy to do. But you know what happens? People start talking to people they don't know because, you're a higher number than I am. And so you introduce and you want to play and it's an easy ask. How did you get to be so good at Mario Kart? Right. And so just starting conversations among people and building that camaraderie, that's super important too. And that just comes from playing a game. It doesn't come from any intentional educational framework that's built around it.
I think Paul, IRL, we got to think about starting with the Mario Kart leaderboard challenge. And then, maybe the year after we've got, you got a big old Rolodex there, Paul. We talked to one of your folks. Maybe they want to put on a CRM sponsored, simulation in a game that starts with fun, delivers team building and some skill development.
I will say this. There's a significant, well, you met one of the Rob Pinkerton last show. Rob
He's
Pinkerton's
a gamer.
He's a hardcore guy. He completed Expedition 33. I'm trying to start it and I can't get past like walking with the main character without falling off a cliff, right? So I'm working on it though. So, well, it's controller based. That's my weakness. Again, I'm 75. I have a little bit of arthritis here and there. So anyway, there are a lot of creative minds who I think would love to do that and would see the value of it too, right? Yes. And actually would fund it. I can think of several in my immediate thoughts. So look, the opportunity here is huge. I think that the B2B marketplace is ripe for this now, especially because, everybody was a kid once, and and once you're a kid, right? So I told our listeners and Todd this one other time. I once spoke at a conference on a Gartner conference on B2B. On the gaming as a prototype for 21st century business. This was in 2004. And I knew the audience was never going to admit to being gamers, never. Right. So I said there was like 550 people and they're all kind of buttoned up 40-year-olds and proving how professional they are. And so I decided I was going to trick them and get them to admit it. So I'm on the stage and I asked them, so I have 2 questions before I get into this next part. How many of you have kids who played PC and video games? And like 70% of the audience raised their hand. But that was, of course, just a setup. I said, how many of you play PC and video games? And that was the question. And like maybe 6 or 7 or 8 people raised their hand. That was it. So I looked at the audience and I was like, fake, total mock shock. And I went, wow, this is the first time an entire audience lied to me. I said, who do you people think you're kidding? Right. And I started like rolling off all the games I played and I was staggering around the thing and they were laughing at certain points. I said, all right, I'm going to ask them one more time. How many of you, not your kids, how many of you play PC and video game? good 60% of the audience raise their hand. I mean, they don't like to say it, but they do. And to your point, they like to play like every other human on the planet in some way, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is you bring out the sense of play, and then people are happy. I mean, what more do you want?
Right.
I love it.
Exactly.
Claire, any we got a couple minutes left. One, I'll invite our chatters, many of whom are very familiar with NASIF, but if there are any questions for us or our guests, drop them in there for sure. And yeah, Claire, any upcoming activities for you or NASIF that you want to let people know about?
Wow, we have such a lineup. We're headed into a new semester for school. So as far as the students go, we'll run Farmcraft again. So we're talking about gamification. That's gamification, learning about agriculture. We've got the Rube Goldberg challenges, Minecraft, and Unreal Engine. We do a really cool, talking about AI again, we do a cool training program called Skill Quest, where the students complete a video series and they learn how to program in Python, career skill. And
Wow.
what they're learning to program is a bot that plays Rocket League. There's the gaming
Wow.
connection. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll be running that again this spring. And we've had some phenomenal global interest. And I think that's one thing we didn't talk about here, but one of the things that we really see with esports is the breaking down of barriers and connection between people in different countries. We have a lot of our fellows who have had virtual exchange programs with the students. So, you have kids in different countries learning about each other, and the common language for all of them is the video games they play.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's just starting off on that level field. Yeah. And then tons of curriculum. We have some really exciting developments where we have one company we've partnered with called Game Class, and you can superimpose a lesson over a video game clip. So I'll go back to Mario Kart. What is the probability that you're going to win if you're playing, if you're in X vehicle on X track? And as soon as you take a lesson, that math lesson, and put it into something that the kids love, now they're very interested. So we've got some work we're doing with Game Class. We're working with another company called Factors on using AI to personalize lessons. We have years of curriculum that NASEF has developed, and we're going to be able to just blend it all together. And you can say what grade level, what standards, all the things that we're trying to teach the kids, and then develop a personal lesson for each of them using all of this curriculum that's been developed over the last several years. It's impressive, and it's incredible to me the way that AI is becoming a tool that's applicable in our day-to-day.
That I want to just restate the Game Class thing, for Paul, because it hits a lot of these themes too, Paul, of like user-generated content, community building. So, like you or I in a classroom could record a clip of Mario Kart and make a lesson around that's based on the video clip, and then put that in the library that's available to educators all over, right? So again, it's a platform-based, community-driven, content-based engagement that's hitting kids where they are around these games.
Fantastic.
So it's pretty cool, disruptive.
So
tool.
last but not least, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what do they do?
Well, our website is nasef.org. My email is claire@nasef.org. Pretty straightforward. Yep. And just for general questions, info@nasef.org.
Wow, that's pretty extraordinary. Really, it gets me excited. I know that.
Awesome.
I'm thinking now I'll go back to kindergarten.
Yeah.
Well, I probably need a nap still, but
Right. I like the milk and cookies idea too. I'd be down for that every day.
Thank you so much, Claire. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Really awesome. And hopefully we'll see you at IRL 2026. We'll Todd and I we'll talk more and get this.
We'll scheme.
Yes.
Perfect. All right.
Thank you so much.
Claire.
Thank you so much.
Bye. That was
about
amazing. That is absolutely amazing. It's dramatic too. I mean, it's like there's so much you could. Let's say this. I had an idea what she did, obviously, but I didn't have any idea of just the scope, and B, the power of it either. And
Yeah.
even look at those last quotes from like Mario and
Laurie's quotes about the
yeah,
attendees.
Laurie's exactly. I mean, there's real impact.
Yeah.
I go, I see whoever that is doing the player production thing. I have no idea who that is if it's not Brent.
I think it could be me, Paul, to answer your question since I'm
okay, well, pretty smart, man.
And
I had no idea.
problem solving on the fly. But yeah, no, I think, I mean, Claire and I, she restated the acronym because the NA used to be North America, right? This started in Orange County, California, grew to North America, but is now global. The acronym had to change because it is global. And of course, that's one of the advantages of this technology is its global reach and its scalability. Just easy to scale up programs and relatively cost effective. Where educators, classrooms, teachers, everyone's dealing with tight budgets. How do they engage kids? How do they deliver outcomes? How do they meet them where they're interested, like Claire said? So
I actually have somebody
cool.
for Claire and you to meet who you actually did meet. I won't say who now just because we're doing a show, but afterwards I'll tell you.
Nice. Awesome.
Somebody you will know as soon as I say her too.
Cool.
Say the name. All right.
Awesome.
Well, we did it again.
We did it again, Paul. We did it again.
It was awesome. It's so exciting.
Yeah. Well, have a good Thanksgiving. I'll see you
too.
On the other
enjoy
side
yourself, sir. And I know I'll see you in about a month, but I'll talk to you before that. I am sure.
All right.
Other than that, you're ready to hit the road.
I am.
All right, everyone. We will see you soon.
Thanks, y'all. That was Game On.
This has been a Players Productions Network digital broadcast.